Canadian friendship, partnership, and success. Thank you.
At an event in Edmonton, the U.S. ambassador toasted Canada with American booze. Hours later, citing that very alcohol that's banned on most provincial shelves, Washington announced another escalation in the trade war with Canada. Officials say this is in response to retaliatory measures Ottawa and provinces have taken on auto, dairy, and booze, but that Canadian energy, potash, and critical minerals are exempt.
It is notable that the list they put out today includes a ton of exemptions. So they could only go so far here, and they targeted what they consider to be some vulnerable sectors. It's definitely going to be painful, though.
Moments before the U.S. announcement, the Prime Minister foreshadowed that Washington might be considering other tariffs.
The United States has a series of measures that they've been looking at for a number of months on so-called 301 tariffs. There's others.
Those other measures, U.S. officials later revealed, are under Section 338 of the U.S. Tariff Act.
But what Section 338 allows U.S. administration to do is to name and shame, point fingers. Ontario, we're naming you. We're calling you out.
Ontario is one of all but 2 provinces that have taken American alcohol off the shelves. Premier Doug Ford posting, if these tariffs proceed, Canada should respond tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. The tariffs on the agenda as premiers gather for meetings in Charlottetown.
At this point, I just feel sorry for Americans. You know, if you're picking fights with Canadians, then you don't have a friend in the world.
In a statement, Prime Minister Mark Carney called the new 50% tariff a violation of Canada's free trade agreement, and Canada was justified in imposing retaliatory tariffs.
So, David, now the clock starts ticking.
Yeah, tariffs are expected to take effect 30 days from now, but according to one trade expert I spoke with, the U.S. might be using that window to force Canada to accept a less favorable trade deal. Carney has said that's something he won't do, saying in his statement Monday that Canada stands ready to intensify negotiations.
All right, David Thurton, thank you. Let's go to Katie Nicholson in Washington now. One big question here, Katie, is why now?
Yeah, this is like less than 24 hours after the leaders of Canada, U.S. and Mexico were at this joyous World Cup event together on stage, all this camaraderie, all the smiles, and then this afternoon, this trade bombshell. So this is being framed by the Trump administration as a defensive measure. They point to the fact that only Canada and China retaliated against that first slew of tariffs back in January of last year. And on timing, this announcement really drops on the eve of the U.S. and Mexico's bilateral trade talks resuming in Mexico. It's in sharp contrast to any sort of public or official bilateral CUSMA negotiations between the U.S. and Canada, even though, yes, we are told there are calls and officials are in frequent contact.
And this could be viewed as a pressure tactic by the U.S. in those broader trade negotiations.
Yeah, a show of force perhaps from the U.S., a little bit of Trumpian art of the deal, maximalist leverage, specifically here on things that have irked American negotiators. From an optics point of view, you also have this split screen, right? Look how well things are going for Mexico. Gee, Canada in comparison is made to look like it's standing still, with some sectors getting newly kicked in the teeth. But again, it remains to be seen just how much of a blow this might be for Canada if these kick in 30 days, or whether they can be canceled or nullified.
And let's talk about the Trump administration's justification for all of this.
Yeah, so Section 338 is a relatively obscure provision in the 1930 Tariff Act, and it essentially allows the president to unilaterally impose additional duties up to 50% on any foreign nation deemed to be discriminating against the U.S. in matters of commerce. So Trump doesn't need Congress to sign off on these, but that doesn't mean there won't be court challenges and rulings that, as we've seen before, could result in court-ordered refunds.
All right, Katie, that is Katie Nicholson in Washington.